today we have a very accomplished guitarist who has performed in front of thousands of screaming rock fans all across the country. We have Jon Levin, the guitar player for Dokken. Welcome, Jon.
Thank you. Hello. Thanks so much for
Hello,
having
all
me.
my screaming fans.
Hi, Jon.
I don't hear anyone.
Yeah. So what excited me about our interview today with you, Jon, is the fact that you are also an entertainment attorney.
Yeah.
I am, we were talking, we recently interviewed Mark Ferrari, who is not your typical rocker. He's very smart, entrepreneurial.
Very smart. Nice guy.
And then we get you, and it's like, wow, we're getting the cream of the crop of rock stars, the best, the brightest, the smartest, and the most talented.
Oh,
so yeah, how did that happen? I mean, where do we start with that?
If you like our videos, go ahead and click on like and subscribe. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh, it started, I grew up with my mother was a teacher. And
Okay.
my father was a doctor. So they had the education background, and they were never really so much into the music thing. But that's what I wanted to do. And, at some point they had to give into it, but it was a pretty big fight all along. They never really liked, my mother thought the industry was full of crooked people and, very difficult and not the right thing she wanted her kid in. And I don't blame her for that. I don't necessarily.
And to a certain extent, she's right?
Yeah, absolutely right. As I later came to find out. But, she softened up to it when she started seeing I was accomplishing things. And I was just let's say it was in the late 80s. And I got into the Warlock thing. We had some videos on MTV because they used to have music videos back in those days,
Mm-hmm.
And then once she saw that, then she softened up to it. And then, I guess then I knew they were okay with it when they came home with a brand new set of really nice luggage for me. I don't know if it meant get out or if it meant, okay, we're giving you the blessing. But
That's cute.
I never clarified that actually. Maybe I need to.
Okay, so when did you start playing music? Like what was your interest? How did you get into
I was super young. We had a piano in the house. And I was just my sister. I have two sisters. They're both older than me. One of them was 6 years older than me. And she was getting piano lessons. And she was, in her, I would guess your young teens, 13, 14, 15, right around there. And I was very young at the time. And I was just, just a little kid. I want to say it was 4 or 5 maybe. And I started, I took to music. I knew I liked music even when I was just really, really young, So then I started fiddling around in the piano a little bit. And then, from there, when I was in, then I played violin when I was in,
Wow.
first. How old are you in first or second grade? I don't even know. But I played violin there, and then I went to right. Okay, so and I know piano was before that, so it must have been 5 or something.
Yeah, wow.
That's great.
Then I did trumpet, and I was a pretty good horn player. And I played in this stage band thing they offered when I was just a young kid. I wasn't really I wasn't doing great as a musician, but I remember I had this one school teacher, and he gave me some encouragement. And then all of a sudden I got, that encouragement really got me going. And
a little bit of praise goes a long way.
Right.
So
Then he'd
true.
come to my house, and give me lessons. And then all of a sudden he'd come into the house and give me lessons on the trumpet. It was in our basement. And I never really went down into the basement. But when I was down there was an old guitar in there. So I was like, what's this? And so I started fiddling around on that. And I went to a friend's house, and he had an electric guitar and a little amp. And this book called The Beatles Complete, how to play it on guitar. And he didn't really know how to play, but I was like, oh, well, can I mess around with this? And I looked at the book and I started fiddling around with some chords. And then all of a sudden, I heard the Rolling Stones and it was game over.
Right.
No more any instrument, that was it. And then from then on, I started playing guitar at 9.
Wow.
Wow.
Hey there, this is Kellie. It was awesome to have Jon as a guest on our Smart Rocker series of podcasts. A lot of times we discount artists as not being very smart or intelligent, but I would say that Jon has completely debunked that theory.
But you're a really good reader, obviously, because you have, all that.
Nope.
No,
Can't
really?
read anything.
Seriously?
Can't read anything. I used to be able to read, like when I was a kid,
Right.
on the horn and whatever. But as soon as I got on guitar, like I just said, I just did everything. You know what I used to do? How to learn? I learned it. We, as our generation of musicians, I'm sure this is true not just for me, but for a lot of musicians, we didn't have the benefit of like social media back then. So how I learned how to play was, you want to learn how to play a Van Halen song? Get the record,
Sure.
the vinyl, slow it down. So we used to slow it down on the turntable or put it on a cassette and slow it down. And, I would learn how to play like what Eddie Van Halen would do, but it wasn't exactly right. It was just my ability, I was learning how to do it. And probably it was better that way because I was able to do things in a different way, as opposed to now you want to learn how to play something, you can go on YouTube and there's a billion clips of pretty much anything you need to learn,
You can Google how to make a chord in the easy version.
You can Google how to build anything,
Yeah.
So, that's how it started for me,
Wow.
Then I got into some bands along the way and kaboom.
Yeah. So then what made you, okay.
No, I'm kidding.
So education's always been important in your family.
Yeah.
What made you go the attorney route?
Here's how the education thing went, right? So I go to college. I went to this school in SUNY Albany. It's a 4-year school. So you have to go to for the first 2 years, you have to study to get in. I wanted to get into this business program. My father wanted me to be a doctor. I didn't want to do that. I can't stand the sight of blood. So I knew it wasn't for me.
That's a problem.
I concur.
Right. So I knew that wasn't going to work. So I got into this business school. You have to have certain grades high enough after the 2 years to see if they're accepted. And then your next 2 years, you got the business school, right? So I got into the business school after the 2 years. And then instead of going forward with that, I decided to tell my parents I'm dropping out of college to play music.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that wasn't the greatest of conversations.
Right.
But it was that decision that got me to where I ended up. Because from there, I played in a club band on Long Island for a number of years. We were a good band too, called Devious. And then one day I got a call from Tommy Henriksen, who is today one of my best and closest friends. We've been friends all these years, since when we met in 87 or 8 or whatever the year was. And he was in Warlock and he called me and he said, hey, I saw you play in your band in one of the clubs and we need a guitar player. It's a serious band. They were already coming off this record called Triumph and Agony that went gold. And Doro was already getting established. Like MTV really was playing her a lot. And he's like, would you want to come down? We need somebody. You want to come down and play? And I gave it some thought. I was on the fence. I wanted to have my own band, but I wasn't 100% sure. And, having weighed the options, I figured, let me go down and play with them and see what's going to happen. I went down and played. I didn't even realize like it was really an audition, to be honest. Like it didn't dawn on me. Like I thought they just wanted to maybe jam. So I remember going to Tommy's house first and we went over some stuff because I wanted to go in there knowing the songs. That's always a good thing to do, like know the material.
Right.
Right. So we went into SIR in the city, I played. And then the next day I got a call from Alex Grobe's assistant. He was Doro Pesch's manager. I didn't know who he was. So she said to me, hi, John, it's somebody, whatever. I'm Alex Grobe's assistant. I was like, who? I had no idea who that was. And she's like, well, Alex would like you to come in and speak with him. And she said, then she told me who he was. I'm like, yeah, sure. So I went into Manhattan, spoke with him, and he said, Doro really liked you and we want you to be in the band. Just no drugs. I remember he told me that. I'm like, I don't do drugs. That's fine with me. So yeah, did that. And then from there, that's how it all started for me.
Wow.
Did my first tour. We toured Europe and we opened up for Ozzy at the Metal Hammer Festival. Did my first arena on that tour.
Kimbra and I were talking one day about some of the guests we've had and how intelligent they are. Chris Dolliver was a great interview, and I think one of our first with a rocker. Then when we talked with Mark Ferrari and had Jon Levin, the rock star attorney, lined up, I said, we're lucky that we keep getting to interview smart rockers. And that's how we decided to do the Smart Rocker series.
So it was 1988, so I was 22.
Wow. So do you feel, hearing your story, it sounds like you are generously gifted, with talent, musical talent, brainiac intelligence, because I know passing the bar is not easy.
Especially in New York.
Yeah, I had an experience. I pressed them the first shot, but that's another story. But thank you.
Stop bragging.
No, that's
I don't take
hugely
credit for
impressive.
any of that. Like thank you though, but I just feel like it comes from another place and you get what you get.
Well, yeah, I believe that too. It's a gift. It's a gift,
Yeah.
but
Even
not
when I write
everybody uses it.
Or, people, when I'm writing, I feel like I'm a conduit.
Mm-hmm.
When I write with my brain, they never are any good. When it comes from some other, I don't know how it happens, or when it just comes in,
Sure.
that's more legit. But
Yeah, I agree with that. But still, that said, you took your gifts and used them. You are sharing them. I always feel like I always say you're supposed to live up to your greatest potential. That's our job in life, whatever it is. And so you've done that, apparently. Do you feel like you have missed out on anything because of being so driven and doing these things? Or do you feel like you were very fulfilled because of doing these
that's
careers?
a really good question. Well, honestly, I don't feel like I've lived up to the potential.
Kellie and I often talk about how we don't like to live in the past too much, and we're always thinking about what's next. Well, it sounds to me like Jon feels the same way. Obviously, he's very motivated.
That's my personality. I don't know that I don't think I ever will, to be honest. For me, it's like my personality is very dismissive of whatever I do. So if I wrote something that I feel like, wow, this one's really good, I'll feel that way for a day. The next day it'll be as if it never happened and it never existed, and I'm back to just ground zero. So it never, I don't ever really, you know what I mean? And I just keep moving forward and trying to, I'm always on a quest for the next better thing I could do on guitar, the next better song I could write. How do I get my sound better? It's just never been, it just never ends. And I think that's what keeps me doing it.
That's good.
And on the law, the law side too, I do a lot of family law. Family law, it's a very, very deep sea. I mean, it seems, people say, oh, well, it seems so cut and dry, and everything's 50-50. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. If it was that simplistic, there wouldn't be courtrooms, judges, and, thousands and thousands of case law and statutory law that you'd have to know on these things. But yeah, but it's such a deep sea that it's always evolving, and it always, there's always, every case has its own issues that come up that make me have to dig, and it keeps it interesting, and it keeps you on your feet.
To me, that's the definition of greatness, is always aspiring to do better. Because when you rest on your laurels, you tend to get stagnant and you don't live up to your greatest potential. So anyway, hats off to you. Very impressive. I was impressed to hear your story. Kimbra's been telling me a little bit about it. Kimbra takes care of getting the guests, so he always knows
I'm the guest coordinator.
story. And to me, it's always all brand new. So yeah. Anyway, very, very impressive. And then I didn't know you also did family law. I thought it was just entertainment law.
Yeah, I do both.
No, family law.
Family and
that's
entertainment. Most of my client is now family law, just because I used to do a lot of entertainment law. It was sort of more 50-50 back in my earlier practice years.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the Napster thing hit, remember Napster?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden people started getting music for free. And when people got the music for free, after that, no one wanted to pay. And it really led to a dramatic downfall of the music business. And then once that happened, there was no upcrop of talent, because there was the record labels, for example. I remember one day, BMG or something laid off 2,000 people in a day. They became less and less and less, and less money, less signing. So when there used to be hundreds of bands getting signed a year, and each band that got signed you needed a lawyer to do the record deal, a publishing deal. It dwindled down to a handful. You almost never even hear of it anymore. So the amount, as it started collapsing, the amount of work that there was for entertainment lawyers started dwindling. So that's just how it was. And my family law practice just started, increasing. So
now, Jon, having said what you said about the music industry and the way it is today, would you advise, or do you have any advice for people that want to get into the music business now? I mean, do you have any opinions?
Yes,
about
I
that?
do.
Say stay out? No, I'm kidding.
No. Absolutely. Follow your heart, play music. If you love music, and that's real, if you love music, play music. I never did music with any intention of trying to make any money from it. And I think if you go into it like that and you end up making money, great. But I don't think you should go into it trying to say, oh, I'm going to make my living, this is it. I'm going to make my living playing music. If you can, and that comes that way, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason to play music is because you love to play music.
Jon gives good advice that you shouldn't have any expectations to make money as a musician. You should do it for your passion. And Kimbra, wouldn't you say that these days you also have to be an entrepreneur to be a successful musician, right? You have to know how to use social media, internet marketing to gain your fan base. So it's not really enough just to be talented. But I would say the good thing is that there are more opportunities than ever, and musicians have more control over their careers. What would you say? What do you think?
Definitely, Kellie. It's a lot more work. I know we talk about this a lot, but in a lot of ways, it does give more people chances to get their art out there, whether it's music or film. But the social media aspect of it is a job by itself.
And because you have creativity and a creative outlet, not because you want to make money. I personally don't think money's ever really the right motivator for.
I agree.
Right,
And they always say that about other things too. Follow your passion and then maybe.
But at a certain point, you have to pay your bills too. So then you go get a
right.
law degree, I guess.
Yeah. You go back to law school.
To be honest, you're right. You have to pay your bills. But if you're looking for stability of income, and the music business is, it's a tough field, especially now where it's so amorphous. How do bands make it? There's so few labels. And if you do get a label deal, they're going to take most of your rights.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's just very, very amorphous. And there is no clear-cut path where if you do X, Y, and Z, okay, here's a living. You want to do law, X, Y, and Z, go to law school, pass the bar exam. If you do well enough, you can certainly get a job with somebody and you can make a living. So that really is more of a clear career path for someone who wants money or we all need to pay our bills.
Right.
Right. But it's kind of given people an opportunity that maybe wouldn't have had an opportunity in the past, that didn't have the connections, or how important do you think connections are in the music industry?
You know what? You're absolutely right. There's new opportunities now for artists with the state of the business, because anybody can now promote their own songs online through the sites.
Right.
And you can join, TuneCore. I think Apple now announced they came out with something. I forgot what it's called, but they have something similar to TuneCore. So there's vehicles for every independent artist now to get out their own music. So it wasn't like that back in the day of, pre-internet, pre-downloads and streaming and all that. So there's new avenues, but the question is how do you become the one in however many it is that actually gets, millions of downloads or streams millions of times? It's still somewhat more, but there is room for someone to do it on their own. And people pop up having done it on their own. Videos go viral and all of a sudden an artist can, and I think that's great.
Yeah. It's kind of like the film industry too. Now everyone's making movies with their iPhone. So it's all independent.
I've seen some amazing movies done on iPhones too. Like the quality is you wouldn't even believe it. Seriously. Yeah. Which is great.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you about Dokken. I know you guys are going on tour pretty soon, right?
Yeah. We're starting again in June, early June.
Are you excited about that?
Yeah, I am. God, the last show we left off in early March of a year ago, before the coronavirus, and all of a sudden, obviously, everything collapsed. And so here we are again, starting up. We have some dates coming up. Some of them keep pushing, but this one's going forward. So I'm excited to play and ready to get back out. It's been a long time to be somewhat cooped up. I don't go out much as it is. So for me, my only excursions are when I go on the road, frankly. Other than that, the COVID life didn't really change my lifestyle that much. I don't ever go anywhere.
Right.
Either working or recording, both of those things.
Is it fun to tour nowadays? I can imagine in the 80s, it was crazy. And now, is it different? How is it different? Is it more?
Yeah, it is. We do mainly fly dates, which means we'll fly out, everything's by plane.
Okay.
So we fly out typically on a Thursday, play Friday, Saturday, come home Sunday, or sometimes we'll do 3 in a row, occasionally 4 in a row. So it's a lot of flights. Sometimes we'll fly 7, 8 times between Thursday and Sunday. So, and a lot of them early morning flights. So the travel could be difficult. It doesn't really pay to do bus tours, at least for us anymore. We used to, But the reason why it doesn't is, unless you're on a full package tour, there's no way to play really on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. They're down days anyway. So you just end up really doing nothing, or you have like a show that's not a great one because no one goes out in those nights,
Right.
So it's just, so we do mostly fly dates. People think there's some big party. There isn't. I don't, I play the show. I go right back to my hotel room, go to bed. I don't go to the bars and hang out. I know that a lot of times there's people doing that, but that's not me. I play and get right to them. And, you realize, if we play on a Friday night, the next morning, we're up 5, 6 in the morning, latest.
Wow.
We're up, have to get to the airport because the next day, you almost always have 2 flights that next morning. Rarely it's one, so we'll get up at 5 or 6, have to get to an airport, however long that drive is, then do one. Usually there's like 2-hour flights or less, like a 40-minute and an hour one or something like that.
Yes, Jon is one of the rare rock and rollers who isn't a big partier. I don't think you could sustain being a lawyer and playing in a rock band and do anything well if you're out partying all night. It's just too grueling.
And then when we get there that day, right, now you're landing in the next airport, figure it's usually like 1 p.m. or noon, or sometimes 2 or 3 even. Now you're pretty pooped because you played the night before. You probably didn't get back to the hotel room till 1 in the morning, and you had to get up at 5. And then we have to go, now we land, go to the hotel, we have to go right to sound check.
Oh, wow.
And you're pretty pooped by that point. You got to go to sound check. And then usually I'll go to sleep after sound check if we're done by like 4, 5, or 6 o'clock. I'll grab some food, we'll eat something. And then usually I'll go to sleep, and then they'll wake me up. I'll wake myself up at like 9 to get back to the venue by 10 or whatever.
Wow, that's work.
Tiring. And then do it again if you have a third one.
Yeah.
And then you're really like, oh, I'm getting close.
Well, okay, so then obviously it's worth it. And I'm guessing, financially, Dokken's huge, so you guys are, making money. But also there's got to be more motivation. I can't even imagine being on one of those stages and like looking out at a sea of people loving you.
I couldn't imagine not doing it. It's just the opposite.
So is it a high? I mean, what is what's exciting about being famous?
It's, for me, I'm just, honestly, I don't even think of any, I'm just a musician. I'm just some little kid who grew up in New York and plays guitar. I'm just a punk kid from New York playing guitar in his room. I grew up playing gigs. So when you grow up playing on stage, it just becomes a part of what you do,
It's just natural. It's not.
Yeah. So there's always that sort of great rush of energy when you get to do it, especially when things go well.
As a singer and a performer, I can attest to what Jon is saying. And Kellie, I know that it's true as well. You're just so amped up when you perform. It's such an adrenaline rush after a performance. It's really hard to come down because there's just nothing like feeling the audience and the energy that they give you.
Sometimes you never know what's going to happen, because sometimes you have a bad show too. It happens no matter how many you do. Sometimes you get out there and it's like all of a sudden the amp breaks, and that's happened to me in front of 10 or 20,000 people. 2 chords in, boom, I'm on a rental amp, it goes down. And you have to just laugh it off, roll the punches and go.
Right.
But, but it's that excitement of sort of not knowing what's going to happen that it adds to the excitement. And then when it goes great, of course, you leave the stage and you get this like elated feeling.
Though my musical talent can be measured in a thimble, I've had the pleasure of hanging out with a lot of talented musicians. 2 of my best friends being Kimbra, a talented singer who does so much more, and also Suzette Andres Boggs, who is also a songwriter, drummer, and singer. One thing I've observed is that they have to work hard and know how to navigate the system. I don't think people in the arts get enough credit for not only the talent, but the intelligence it takes to be successful.
It's great.
Yeah, I bet. Well, obviously you're very humble, but in your career, was there a point when you just thought to yourself, wow, I made it. Like, this is magic.
No.
You never really got to that point.
Never
where you just
happened.
felt like,
that won't
hey,
ever
Mom,
happen.
look.
Hey, Ma, look at me,
No, because as soon as I'm done with whatever that show is, it just becomes in my mind, can we do it again? Can I do it again?
Uh-huh.
I finished a song I think is really good. Can I do it again?
Yeah, it's about,
this one's came out really good. Can I do it now? How do I beat that? Can I do it again?
Kellie, it's so true what Jon is saying. Songwriting, performing, it's not a perfect science, it's fluid. And anything that we create is a combination of so many things. We are so lucky when something we do resonates with someone else. So it's about the work, as it were.
Keep going. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's my personality. So nothing ever registers to me. I don't even remember half of it.
I did want to ask you one thing though, because you have this cerebral side to you and then you have this artistic musical side. Is there something about you that our listeners, your fans, they don't know about you? Is there some interesting thing about you that people would find kind of surprising? You like to hike.
The two sides, they coexist peacefully, because when I leave the law practice, that side doesn't take it with me. You know, when we used to do bus tours, I used to work on the tour bus during the day up until showtime. And sometimes I would be so busy that like the tour manager would come and say, dude, get dressed, man. We're on at 40, you know? And I'm like, okay, thanks, man. And then Don would say, Jon, like, how are you gonna now you're gonna really transfer into the stage mode after you worked all day? Don't do that. But then he saw that it wasn't an issue for me. I should just turn it off.
Right.
Yeah. But you know, I carry the burdens of whatever it is that makes me me, you know, stress on the one end, you know, a lot of worry and stress. It's just that's just how I am, you know. And then on the other end, you know, I'm just a musician. All the other stuff I honestly could do without. It doesn't mean anything to me. I love that people love that. If people enjoy it and I can sort of touch somebody, and that means something to me. But I'm just a kid who plays guitar.
Kimbra, as you know, I'm not easily impressed. I have some of the smartest and most talented friends that I get to hang out with. But I gotta tell you, I could not help but gush over a rock star who is also an attorney. I'm so impressed with Jon's talent, his intelligence, and his humility. The interview was truly a pleasure.
Yes, Kellie, I have to agree. Meeting Jon was great because he's such a nice guy. And it's so rare that you meet someone like him who's an attorney and then also a musician in the rock world, because on the one hand, you have to be so in control. And on the other hand, you have to be kind of wild. So it's kind of an interesting combination. And I know that we would both love to have him back on soon.
Wow.
It's really it.
I bet you're a gem and a pleasure to work with, because that attitude is really, you know, that's what we should all be. We should all know that we're special and gifted, and if we're using our talents, you know, it's no better than anyone else. We're just,
everyone's got gifts and
gifted.
talents. You know, we all just have them in different ways, and you know, some people want to develop with them, and some don't. And you know, I'm sure there's plenty of amazingly talented musicians that just never knew it because they never tried.
Right.
You know, it's, you know, some people paint. I can't draw to save my life, man. I can't draw a stick figure. You know, I can't. So, but you know, I can play music.
I'm just curious. Are you a big Jimi Hendrix fan? Because I saw a picture of him in one of your.
Yeah, I'm a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. Huge. Like, I watched every single thing I could see online from him. I have 2 Jimi Hendrix Stratocasters.
Besides Hendrix, who were your other influences?
Oh man, I went through the gamut of players. When I was I'll start from the get. When I was young, I heard Eric Clapton because someone started showing me a couple had a bend on guitar, and that was very, very game changing for me, because later I came to realize like that gives you your voice, your vibrato, and your bending gives you a voice on guitar. And then from there, I was a big Kiss fan, although that didn't last too long. I like Kiss, but because I moved on to, you know, of course, Eddie Van Halen and George Lynch, who the original Dokken guitar player, is a great player, and Randy Rhoads. I was a huge Randy Rhoads fan from Ozzy. You know.
He's going to be inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year, I think.
Oh, really?
Or he's nominated. I'm not sure.
Passed away too. I heard. Maybe I guess his brother will do it.
Maybe.
But then Michael Schenker is a huge fan of Michael Schenker, Nuno Betancourt. I just appreciate great players. I mean, Joe Bonamassa is an amazing player. There's so many. And whenever I feel like I need some inspiration, or I don't know what I'm getting stale, like I'll go to YouTube and I'll start clicking around and listening to people. I mean, I discovered this one guy recently. God, this guy is just amazing. Eric Gales. This guy he's a lefty, okay? Like, you know, Jimi Hendrix is I'm a lefty too, but I play guitar righty, like a normal righty player, like 80-90% of everyone else. So Jimi Hendrix was a lefty, but he strung the guitar strings as if you were a normal setup, like a righty. In other words, the low E string, when you play righty, your low E string's on the bottom. Hendrix played lefty, his low E string's on the bottom. So it would be normal, like the same for him as it was for me, only he was lefty and I'm righty, right? Okay, this guy, Eric Gales, he takes a righty guitar, strung as a righty, flips it around and plays it that way. So his strings are, not only is it's upside down and backwards. So his high string is on the bottom. You know, what I call, whatever you want to call the top or the bottom.
Right.
You know, the exact opposite. So it's just like, no way. I guess that's how he got used to playing, but that guy is just an unbelievable player.
What's his name again?
Eric Gales.
Okay, I'll have to check him out.
Yeah, I saw a clip of him playing on like some cruise ship with Joe Bonamassa. It was like, oh my God.
Wow.
This is just unbelievable.
Well, Jon, we're running out of time with you today, but
That's it.
that's all you get. No. But we'll have you back. Maybe
Yeah,
you
you have to
can
come
talk
back.
to us before you go on tour.
Sounds great.
We can, you know, talk about the tour.
Yeah.
Wow, we'd love to do
Come
it.
back with some stories.
There's always those, especially in the band I'm in. Believe me. There's always no
We want to
stories.
hear more. Yeah.
All right, you guys.
All right, thanks so much.
What a pleasure. Thank you, John.
Thank you. Likewise, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Have a
Bye-bye.
nice day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.